The Life of Henry V, Act 1. Enter Prologue. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention! A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon gentles all, the flat unraised spirits that hath dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden, the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in a little place and a million, and let us ciphers to this great accompt on your imaginary forces work. Suppose within the girdle of these walls are now confined two mighty monarchies, whose high upreared and abutting fronts the perilous narrow ocean parts asunder. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Into 1,000 parts divide one man, and make imaginary puissance. Think when we talk of horses, that you see them printing their proud hoofs in the receiving earth. For 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping over times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass, for the which supply admit me chorus to this history. Who, prologue like, your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play. Act 1, Scene 1. Enter two bishops, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Bishop of Ely. Canterbury. My lord, I'll tell you that self-bill is urged, which in the 11th year of the last king's reign was like, and had indeed against us passed, but that the scambling and unquiet time did push it out of farther question. But how, my lord, shall we resist it now? It must be thought on. If it pass against us, we lose the better half of our possession. For all the temporal lands which men devout by testament have given to the church, would they strip from us, being valued thus, as much as would maintain to the king's honor, full 15 earls and 1,500 knights, 6,200 good esquires, and to relief of lazars, and weak age of indignant faint souls past corporal toil, 100 almshouses right well supplied, and to the coffers of the king beside, 1,000 pounds by the year, thus runs the bill. This would drink deep, 'twould drink the cup and all. But what prevention? The king is full of grace and fair regard, and a true lover of the holy church. The courses of his youth promised it not. The breath no sooner left his father's body, but that his wildness, mortified in him, seemed to die too. Yea, at that very moment, consideration like an angel came and whipped the offending Adam out of him, leaving his body as a paradise, to envelop and contain celestial spirits. Never was such a sudden scholar made, never came reformation in a flood with such a heavy-heady currents, scouring faults, nor never hydra-headed willfulness so soon did lose his seat and all at once as in this king. We are blessed in the change. Hear him but reason in divinity, and all admiring with an inward wish you would desire the king were made a prelate. Hear him debate of commonwealth affairs, you would say it hath been all in all his study. List his discourse of war, and you shall hear a fearful battle rendered you in music. Turn him to any cause of policy, the guardian not of it he will unloose. Familiar as his garter, that when he speaks, the air a chartered libertine is still, and the mute wonder lurketh in men's ears to steal his sweet and honeyed sentences, so that the art and practic part of life must be the mistress to this theoric, which is a wonder how his grace should glean it, since his addiction was to courses vain, his companies unlettered, rude, and shallow, his hours filled up with riots, banquets, sports, and never noted in him any study, any retirement, any sequestration from open haunts and popularity. The strawberry grows underneath the nettle, and wholesome berries thrive and ripen best, neighbored by fruit of baser quality. And so the prince obscured his contemplation under the veil of wildness, which, no doubt, grew like the summer grass, fastest by night, unseen yet crescive in his faculty. It must be so, for miracles are ceased, and therefore we must needs admit the means how things are perfected. But, my good lord, how now for mitigation of this bill, urged by the commons, doth his majesty incline to it, or no? He seems indifferent, or rather swaying more upon our part than cherishing the exhibitors against us. For I have made an offer to his majesty upon our spiritual convocation, and in regard of causes now in hand, which I have opened to his grace at large, as touching France, to give a greater sum than ever at one time the clergy yet did to his predecessors part withal. How did this offer seem received, my lord? With good acceptance of his majesty, save that there was not time enough to hear, as I perceived his grace would fain have done, the several and unhidden passages of his true titles to some certain dukedoms, and generally to the crown and seat of France, derived from Edward his great-grandfather. What was the impediment that broke this off? The French ambassador upon that instant craved audience, and the hour, I think, is come to give him hearing. Is it 4 o'clock? It is. Then go we in to know his embassy, which I could with a ready guess declare before the Frenchmen speak a word of it. I'll wait upon you, and I long to hear it. Scene 2. Enter the King, Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, Bedford, Clarence, Warwick, Westmoreland, and Exeter, and other attendants. King Henry. Where is my gracious Lord of Canterbury? Not here in presence. Send for him, good uncle. Shall we call in the ambassador, my liege? Not yet, my cousin. We would be resolved, before we hear him, of some things of weight that task our thoughts concerning us and France. and her 2 bishops, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Bishop of Ely, Canterbury. God and his angels guard your sacred throne, and make you long become it. Sure we thank you, my learned lord. We pray you to proceed, and justly and religiously unfold why the law Salique that they have in France, or should not, bar us in our claim. And God forbid, my dear and faithful lord, that you should fashion, rest, or bow your reading, or nicely charge your understanding soul with opening titles, miscreate whose right suits not in native colours with the truth. For God doth know how many now in health shall drop their blood in approbation of what your reverence shall incite us to. Therefore take heed how you impugn our person, how you awake our sleeping sword of war. We charge you in the name of God, take heed. For never 2 such kingdoms did contend without much fall of blood, whose guiltless drops are every one a woe, a sore complaint against him whose wrongs gives edge unto the swords that make such waste in brief mortality. Under this conjuration speak, my lord, for we will hear, note, and believe in heart that what you speak is in your conscience washed, as pure as sin with baptism. Then hear me, gracious sovereign, and you peers, that owe yourselves, your lives and services to this imperial throne. There is no bar to make against your highness's claim to France, but this which they produce from the Pharamond. Interim salicam mulieres ne succeedent, no woman shall succeed in Salique land, which Salique land the French unjustly gloze to be the realm of France, and Pharamond, the founder of this law and female bar. Yet their own authors faithfully affirm that the land Salique is in Germany, between the floods of Saale and of Elbe, where Charles the Great, having subdued the Saxons, there left behind and settled certain French, who, holding in disdain the German women for some dishonest manners in their life, established then this law, to wit, no female should be inheritrix in Salique land, which Salique, as I said, twixt Elbe and Saale, is at this day in Germany called Meissen. Then doth it well appear in the Salique law was not devised for the realm of France, nor did the French possess the Salique land until 421 years after defunction of King Pharamond, idly supposed the founder of this law, who died within the year of our redemption 426, and Charles the Great subdued the Saxons, and did seat the French beyond the river Saale in the year 805. Besides, their writers say King Pepin, which deposed Childeric, did, as heir general, being descended of Blithild, which was daughter to King Clothaire, make claim and title to the crown of France. Hugh Capet also, who usurped the crown of Charles the Duke of Lorraine, sole heir male of the true line and stock of Charles the Great, to fine his title with some shows of truth, though in pure truth it was corrupt, and not conveyed himself as the heir to the Lady Lingare, daughter to Charlemagne, who was the son to Louis the Emperor, and Louis the son of Charles the Great. Also King Louis X, who was sole heir to the usurper Capet, could not keep quiet in his conscience, wearing the crown of France, till satisfied that fair Queen Isabel, his grandmother, was lineal of the Lady Ermengar, daughter to Charles, the foresaid Duke of Lorraine, by the which marriage the line of Charles the Great was reunited to the crown of France, so that, as clear as is the summer's sun, King Pepin's title and Hugh Capet's claim, King Louis his satisfaction, all appear to hold in right and title of the female. So did the kings of France unto this day. Howbeit they would hold up this Salique law to bar your highness claiming from the female, and rather choose to hide them in a net, than amply to embar their crooked titles usurped from you and your progenitors. May I with right and conscience make this claim? The sin upon my head, dread sovereign, for in the book of Numbers is it writ, when the man dies, let the inheritance descend unto the daughter. Gracious Lord, stand for your own, unwind your bloody flag. Look back into your mighty ancestors. Go, my dread Lord, to your great-grandsire's tomb, from whom you claim invoke his warlike spirit, and your great-uncle's Edward the Black Prince, who on the French ground played a tragedy, making defeat on the full power of France, whiles his most mighty father on a hill stood smiling to behold his lion's whelp forage in blood of French nobility. O noble English, that could entertain with half their forces the full pride of France, and let another half stand laughing by, all out of work and cold for action. Awake, remembrance of these valiant dead, and with your puissant arm renew their feats. You are their heir, you sit upon their throne. The blood and courage that renowned them runs in your veins, and my thrice puissant liege is in the very May morn of his youth, ripe for exploits and mighty enterprises. Your brother kings and monarchs of the earth do all expect that you should rouse yourself, as did the former lions of your blood. They know your grace hath cause, and means, and might, so hath your highness. Never king of England had nobles richer and more loyal subjects, whose hearts have left their bodies here in England, and lie pavilloned in the fields of France. Oh, let their bodies follow, my dear liege, with blood and sword and fire, to win your right, in aid whereof we of the spiritually will raise your highness such a mighty sum as never did the clergy at one time bring in to any of your ancestors. We must not only arm it to invade the French, but lay down our proportions to defend against the Scot, who will make road upon us with all advantages. They of those marches, gracious sovereign, shall be a wall sufficient to defend our inland from the pilfering borderers. We do not mean the coursing snatchers only, but fear the main intendment of the Scot, who hath been still a giddy neighbor to us. For you all shall read that my great-grandfather never went with his forces into France, but that the Scot on his unfurnished kingdom came pouring like the tide into a breach, with ample and brim fullness of his force, galling the gleaned land with hot assays, girding with grievous siege castles and towns, that England, being empty of defence, hath shook and trembled at the ill neighbourhood. She hath been then more feared than harmed, my liege, for hear her but exampled by herself, when all her chivalry hath been in France, and she a mourning widow of her nobles, she hath herself not only well defended, but taken and impounded as a stray the King of Scots, whom she did send to France, to fill King Edward's fame with prisoner kings, and make her chronicle as rich with praise, as is the ooze and bottom of the sea, with sunken wrack and sumless treasuries. But there's a saying very old and true, if that you will France win, then with Scotland first begin. For once the eagle England being in prey, to her unguarded nest the weasel Scot comes sneaking, and so sucks her princely eggs, playing the mouse in absence of the cat, to tame and havoc more than she can eat. It follows then the cat must stay at home, yet that is but a crushed necessity, since we have locks to safeguard necessaries, and pretty traps to catch the petty thieves. While that the armed hand doth fight abroad, the advised head defends itself at home. For government, though high and lower, put into parts, doth keep in one consent, congreeing in a full and natural close like music. Therefore doth heaven divide the state of man in divers functions, setting endeavor in continual motion, to which is fixed as an aim or but obedience, for so work the honeybees, creatures that by a rule in nature teach the act of order to a peopled kingdom. They have a king, and officers of sorts, where some, like magistrates, correct at home, others, like merchants, venter trade abroad, others, like soldiers armed in their stings, make boot upon the summer's velvet buds, which pillage they with merry march bring home to the tent royal of their emperor, who, busied in his majesty, surveys the singing masons building roofs of gold, the civil citizens kneading up the honey, the poor mechanic porters crowding in their heavy burthens at his narrow gate, the sad-eyed justice with his surly hum, delivering over to executors pale the lazy yawning drone. I this infer, that many things, having full reference to one consent, may work contrariously, as many arrows loosed several ways come to one mark, as many ways meet in one town, as many fresh streams meet in one salt sea, as many lines close in the dial's center, so may 1,000 actions once afoot end in one purpose, and be all well born without defeat. Therefore to France, my liege, divide your happy England into 4, whereof take you 1/4 into France, and you withal shall make all Gallia shake. If we, with thrice such powers left at home, cannot defend our own doors from the dog, let us be worried, and our nation lose the name of hardiness and policy. Call in the messengers sent from the Dolphin. Now are we well resolved, and by God's help and yours, the noble sinews of our power, France being ours, will bend it to our awe, or break it all to pieces, or there will sit, ruling in large and ample empery over France and all her almost kingly dukedoms, or lay these bones in an unworthy urn, tombless with no remembrance over them. Either our history shall with full mouth speak freely of our acts, or else our grave, like Turkish mute, shall have a tongueless mouth, not worshipped with a waxen epitaph. Now are we well prepared to know the pleasure of our fair cousin Dolphin, for we hear your greeting is from him, not from the king. May it please your majesty to give us leave freely to render what we have in charge, or shall we sparingly show you far off the Dolphin's meaning and our embassy? We are no tyrant, but a Christian king, unto whose grace our passion is as subject, as is our wretches fettered in our prisons. Therefore, with frank and with uncurbed plainness, tell us the Dolphin's mind. Thus then, in a few, your highness, lately sending into France, did claim some certain dukedoms in the right of your great predecessors, King Edward the Third, In answer of which claim the prince our master says that you savor too much of your youth, and bids you be advised there's not in France that can be with a nimble galliard one. You cannot revel into dukedoms there, and he therefore sends you meter for your spirit, this tune of treasure, and in lieu of this desires you let the dukedoms that you claim hear no more of you. This the Dolphin speaks. What treasure, uncle? Tennis balls, my liege. We are glad the Dolphin is so pleasant with us. His present and your pains we thank you for. When we have matched our rackets to these balls, we will in France, by God's grace, play a set, shall strike his father's crown into the hazard. Tell him he hath made a match with such a wrangler, that all the courts of France will be disturbed with chases, and we understand him well, how he comes over us with our wilder days, not measuring what use we made of them. We never valued this poor seat of England, and therefore, living hence, did give ourself to barbarous license, as 'tis ever common that men are merriest when they are from home. But tell the Dolphin I will keep my state, be like a king, and show my sail of greatness, when I do rouse me in my throne of France. For that I have laid by my majesty, and plotted like a man for working days. But I will rise there with so full a glory that I will dazzle all the eyes of France. Ye strike the Dolphin blind to look on us, and tell the pleasant prince this mock of his hath turned his balls to gunstones, and his soul shall stand sore charged for the wasteful vengeance that shall fly with them. For many a thousand widows shall this his mock out of their dear husbands, mock mothers from their sons, mock castles down. And some are yet ungotten and unborn, that shall have cause to curse the Dolphin's scorn. But this lies all within the will of God, to whom I do appeal, and in whose name tell you the Dolphin I am coming on, to venge me as I may, and to put forth my rightful hand in a well-hollowed cause. So get you hence in peace, and tell the Dolphin his jest will savor but of shallow wit, when thousands weep more than did laugh at it. Convey them with safe conduct, fare you well. This was a merry message. We hope to make the sender blush at it. Therefore, my lords, omit no happy hour that may give furtherance to our expedition. For we have now no thought in us but France, save those to God that run before our business. Therefore let our proportions for these wars be soon collected, and all things thought upon, that may with reasonable swiftness add more feathers to our wings. For God before will chide this Dolphin at his father's door. Therefore let every man now task his thought, that this fair action may on foot be brought. End of Act 1. Amen. Praise be to God. Jesus Christ. Jah Rastafari. Bless William Shakespeare.